If you have a shock of confidence, then you will have a shock of currency. You will have probably the Swiss franc to appreciate again, the US dollar to appreciate, and the euro to depreciate.
So Valerie, perhaps you'd like to start by talking about the status of the Swiss franc at present.
Well, I mean, what the financial market wants to hear is that the status of the Swiss franc is a safe haven currency. But the US dollar is also the same status of a safe haven currency. And what do you mean by that? You mean that you have cyclical evolution of the risk aversion, risk appetite, and in this sense, the franc is reacting to that. But what I want to insist on this safe haven status is the Swiss franc is much more an economic strong status. To compare with the US dollar, it's a currency that is cyclical, that could appreciate or depreciate over the time. For the Swiss franc, is not anymore the case. Since the 90s, you have let's say, a trend of appreciation. So what is it? Why is it the case? Mostly because every day Swiss are accumulating a surplus on goods exchange, a surplus on services exchange, but also a surplus is coming from the revenue on FDI, on participation of corporate outside Switzerland. So against those flows, you really need to have a strong, let's say, conviction that Swiss corporate will move badly, will have problems in the next future, to be sure that the Swiss franc could depreciate. And that is really more a strong economic status that the Swiss franc has than much more a safe haven status that for me is more cyclical than structural.
And you've mentioned the appreciation trend, so is it overly optimistic to expect the Swiss franc to depreciate in line with market expectations?
I think it's really the case, and Mr. Dantin said it last year, it's really due to the Swiss resident. When the Swiss resident decide to invest outside because financial opportunities are better than in Switzerland, for example, in the current period because of the negative interest rate, then you have the opportunity to have some depreciation. That was the case after the shock of last year, and progressively people invest outside, and we had at the end of the year a net surplus of investment, portfolio investment, of 40 billion outside Switzerland. So in this case you can expect some depreciation, but as you know, the recent decision will probably increase some doubt of some uncertainty regarding the Eurozone economy. So that means that those Swiss residents that were ready to invest outside, and especially in Europe last year, probably this year will refrain from invest outside.
Absolutely, and you mentioned the uncertainty there. So taking a look at the recent Brexit decision, the Swiss franc actually rose on the back of the decision. So what are the consequences for Switzerland from the Britain exiting the European Union?
Well, I think it's difficult to give a global picture of that, and it's too early. So what is really important when we try to assess the economic impact of this decision is that you have to do some segmentation of this impact. First of all, you have to take the point, is the UK supposed to have a confidence shock of their actors, of their economic actors, and that you will have on shock on growth? If you think about that, and that is probably the case because, as we said, I mean, the generation division of the vote could lead to a shock of confidence in UK actors, then the issue is what will be the impact on Switzerland. The first type of impact could be direct and based on exchange of trades. What we know is that the sectors that are most exposed to this exchange are pharmaceutical, horlogerie, what is jewelers, also you have the financial sector. In this type of sectors, you could have a direct impact. Now, what is also important is what the corporates that have investment in United Kingdom, or the opposite, would the British corporate having investment in Switzerland, what will they do with their future investment, with their employment, what will they do with that? And this is really too early to know, first of all. Then the last impact will really depend on the confidence of all economic and financial actors, and especially if you think about some transmission channel of the lack of confidence in UK toward the Europe. And if you have a shock of confidence, then you will have a shock of currency. You will have probably the Swiss franc to appreciate again, the US dollar to appreciate, and the euro to depreciate. But this is really based on an indirect impact that will be due to confidence factor, political factors, and they are not really specifically economic factors.
Fantastic. Well, Valerie, thank you so much for coming in today and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you too.
That's all from myself and Valerie, but if you did like this interview, do like and comment on Dugoscopy.tv.